Welcome back. This is a repost of episode 48. This is a two-part series. If you want to see the first part of this game, go back and watch episode 47 to see how we got to this point. In the second part of this game review, we get into more of the details of how this game ends, as well as the mass confrontation that happened at the end of this high school match. This is a repost with editing that was done in order to remove any references to the date and time and the schools involved in this because there was the mother of a player who complained about her player being called out on social media, even though we don't reference anybody by names, and I don't think it would be possible to identify them anyway. But as a professional courtesy to the athletic director, I re-edited the video in order to remove any of those references. So I don't think it's possible to identify the players at this point. But since we focus on referee improvement and the referee commentary, I wanted to get this back up because I think it is some of the most interesting stuff. So hope you enjoy this, and let's get it going. Into minute 65, we've got a moment here that's not actually a decision. I just want to kind of highlight something that, as a referee crew, is a little bit of a pet peeve of mine. The ball is coming up the side, and then this Marine player is going to save it. It's going to be right on the line. And unfortunately, we don't have the audio for this particular recording, but there was quite a bit of chatter from this technical area about that ball being out. And you see they even look back at my assistant referee, Vlad, who's right on that line. And, you know, there's no way we can, on this video, judge whether or not that was in or out. I can tell you that there's no reason I would doubt Vlad's view of it. And there's only one person at the entire sports complex actually in position to see that, exactly. And that's the assistant referee. So, you know, these are the ones I really just wish spectators and coaches would just leave to us, because we're the people in the position to see it, and it can be, even being a yard or two off, it can be very deceiving.
Absolutely. I mean, we remember the Women's World Cup in the penalty kick shootout for the U.S. women's national team. How, I mean, fine a line that was. Obviously, right. That's for a goal. I mean, this is a relatively small decision comparatively, especially because it looks like, I mean, I can't see exactly, but it looks like he's going to lose the ball anyways.
Right.
But you'll see here the coach, right? He does his finger wag, and then he's going to turn, look at the AR, and he's going to do a finger wag again. And we can't hear what he's saying, but we can imagine it's probably not, hey, that was a really good call.
Yeah. You know? I remember he was upset about that one.
Yeah. And so just one that, did you say anything to him?
I don't think I did at the time. And I was more in the middle of the field and just moving on to the next phase. Maybe I should have.
Sometimes, I mean, it's really about, the moment. How much is he saying? Is it something that needs to be addressed? Is it loud? Is he loud with it, right? Hard to tell. But if he was any of those things, it's a great one that a real quick just line, Coach, appreciate it. AR's right on the line. He's got a great view. We're going this way. Right. Something short, acknowledge. A lot of times coaches just want to be acknowledged. Acknowledge that, hey, okay, I understand you think we got that wrong. I appreciate it, but AR's right on the line. We're going this way. It can sometimes be helpful for coaches.
Into minute 68, we're looking at the right-hand side of our screen here where the ball is going to come to this white player who's trying to receive it, coming high in the air. And then as he's coming through here, the red player, actually, you see his foot kind of step on his Achilles behind him there. So it's not intentional. Like, I don't think it's reckless. It's kind of, they're all looking for the ball, and he just accidentally gets him. I ended up actually, there's a little bit of if I played at real speed, he kind of first moves forward like it's a push, and then he hops like, oh, ouch, that really hurt. So I can't remember if I called it for the push or for the Achilles, but either way, it was a foul, and I grant it.
So here, Scott, 73rd minute, we're going to see an offside decision on the field. But if we look at the moment of our actual decision, we see the player, the Maroon in number 11, looks like he's maybe on the 34.5-yard line, and then we see in the distance there our player in white who'd be the defender closer to the goal, right? Maybe 31, 32. So at least a yard onside, if just to give the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
And the ball is already played at this point, just about played, and so we know, and even as we go forward, he still appears to be onside as we go here. So just looks like one that we just got wrong as an officiating team. Those happen, right? We try to do our best to make sure that we're on point with it, but sometimes we make mistakes, and that's one that we probably missed.
Okay, next up, we've got ball coming in on a throw in. We're going to see something that I made a no call on the pitch, and let's watch and see if we think I got it right. The ball bounces up off a header, and then here this white player jumps up, heads this ball, and then you see this maroon player kind of stumble forward. And so I think there's potentially a jumping into. I made it a no call on the pitch. I didn't have as good of an angle as this camera does here. I would have been kind of looking through them, so it's difficult to see it, but like I did see him from my angle jump what I felt was straight up, right? And so that's why I made that a no call. I think it could go either way, but I don't know that it's wrong to make it a no call.
Yeah, even from this angle, I'm really not certain that it's a foul, and so given where you are, and then given that even from here in slow-mo, we're like, is it a foul? I think you made the right decision on the pitch. Absolutely. So after that decision's been made, I think this is a great opportunity for us. We're talking about positioning earlier, for us as officials to see, okay, can we get to the next phase of play? So as we go kind of frame by frame forward here, we'll see right about here, there's no decision to be made at this point, right? Like white there's enough distance there. We know that maroon wants to go forward with the ball. And so I think as an official, we can take a quick scan of our shoulder, see that this space here is wide open, that space, there's no one there. And so we can, as an official, kind of get forward. We're also kind of on our diagonal, which is kind of more suggestive. It's not, we don't have to stay on that, but it helps us to get forward because as this plays out, this ball is going to go and we start going here. And so then
I waited. If we play this back, I should be running by now.
We should be, we should be moving forward towards our, coffin corner, because as we keep going here, we'll see that we have a player running here, and if you pause it here, if he plays that ball, we have no support on that side. That's our corner, and we're 45-ish plus yards away, and now we're really trying to sprint there to get there. And I think not only does that help us if we're there earlier from a positioning standpoint, but it also saves us our legs a little bit, right? Like this is late in the game. It's a turf field, so the ball's been moving quickly all game long. These are young men, teenage, like they move quickly, and we could just save ourselves by just being there sooner to make a potential decision. It just helps us with positioning. If we just get moving early there, a quick scan of the shoulder would help, and then just get moving out.
I think that's really good feedback. I've taken part in a couple of mentoring opportunities with some of the California North Referee Association, and they talk a lot about positioning, and I know it's something that I struggle with, and given how, I'm a bigger guy, right? I'm a bigger, older guy. I do know one of the things I'm watching for here is I want to stay out of their attacking lines, right? And I know that if I start running, I'm going to be slower than him, and I'm going to be in his attacking line a little bit longer than I want to, so I let it pass, right? So, but it definitely would be better if I had just started running sooner. Because now you're right. I'm out of position. I'm not going to be able to keep up with them. And if they go to that long far corner, I've got a problem.
Yeah, we got a big sprint coming.
Yeah.
So
on to minute 77. We've got the most interesting part of this game with a kind of a mass confrontation, or at least a fight here. So Maroon has just scored a goal, and White has just kicked it off. So the player just kicked it back. His teammate's going to one-time it, trying to come up on an attack. And then we're going to see, as he gets this ball, this Maroon player comes through and just does a really hard challenge from behind. And so I was going to issue a yellow card there. So you can already see I blow my whistle. I'm starting to reach into my pocket. But then let's watch what happens here, and we'll play it out. They start having some words, and then there's this hard push, and just this whole melee. I'm in there trying to break it up. Luckily, nobody else throws any punches. I kind of quickly give some red cards there. I give one to both of them. Let's go back, and I want to play it in a little bit slower motion here and show you what I actually saw in the field. So, this challenge, it's reckless to begin with, no real reason for that. And, they go down, but I also see the White player, he's frustrated, he just got a hard foul. He lifts his leg up, intentionally trying to trip the Maroon player as he's coming over. And you can see I'm whistling. I see something's going to happen. They're exchanging some words. I'm already reaching for yellow cards. And I start to kind of come in. I've got my arm out because I'm talking to him, but yeah, there's that hard push, and he gets him in the throat area. And at this point, I'm immediately thinking, like, there's going to be at least one red card here for sure. I'm already trying to sprint in. Now, this is maybe a mistake on my part because I really shouldn't be getting in the middle of this, but I think this is the dad, a little bit of the dad in me trying to just keep kids from getting hurt. But I ended up seeing, okay, there's the hard push, and at this moment, if this number 10 turns around and walks away, he's only going to get the yellow for the initial foul, and that's only if I remember to come back and give it to him, right? So, but he doesn't. Like, what I saw was he leans back in here, and he cocks his arm back like he's going to throw a punch, and then yes, he doesn't actually land any punches, and this white player gets the better part of what happens and grabs him in a headlock. But I felt that he had that moment where he could have gone away. So at this moment, I kind of decide I'm going to give a red card to both of them. Now, I think white is more responsible for what happened.
Certainly.
But I don't think Maroon is clean in this either. Now, I continue to try to break them up. By the way, something I would not recommend and I need to learn to stay out of at high school, at any youth level. You shouldn't be putting your hands on the players. It's just gut reaction. And there's kind of a moment there I realize, oh, crud, yeah, I shouldn't be here. So I kind of get my hands out of there and I try to talk to them and try to get them to split up. But yeah, this ends up going on for a little bit. My ARs collapse in. I give the cards quickly. I'm going to flash forward a couple of seconds here because as they're separating, Maroon's kind of wondering why is he getting a card. I get him to separate. I come over and I talk to Vlad to start figuring out, well, what did you see? And Vlad questions a little bit here whether or not I should give a red or a yellow to the red player in this instance. And I explained to him that I saw a moment where that number 10 for Maroon could have walked away and he chose not to. So I told him that's what I saw in the field. And he just basically said, well, if that's what you saw, then you need to go with your call. We do have that discussion. Now, I don't go and I don't talk to Manny on the other side, but we end up deciding to leave it that way. There's a little bit of discussion with some coaches. The coach over here is, of course, chirping, why is my player was just defending himself, blah, blah. But Andrew, I'm curious, if I go back to the moment of this foul and everything that happens here, with your experience level and everything, what do you see out of all of this? And what can I do to take my game to another level here?
Well, I think you've got the first foul right. Obviously, it's a reckless challenge from behind, so it's an easy yellow for us. I think what then happens that is really key that sets this off is the player in white is really upset and kicks out. Right there. He kicks out. And right when that happens is when our spidey senses have to be going, right? Our awareness, our alertness has to rise. I think it does here for you, Scott. You step in, your hands extended, as you said. I might come in with that second kind of kick out with a tweet, 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 like, hey, I see it. Like, let's alert people to what's going on right now. But honestly, you're 5 yards away here. There's not a whole lot more you could do. I don't think at this point right here, when they're looking at each other, you have to sprint in super fast and try to get in between them. I mean, hindsight's 20/20, but it's really tough to say. I mean, if very easily they could have looked at each other and said, "What's up? What's up?" And then you get in there and you kind of separate, and that's all, right? But the player in white then makes this egregious shove to the chest, to the throat area, and as a player, I understand the number 10 not wanting to turn away at that point and walk away, right? He just got shoved in the front. I mean, he turns around, he might get shoved in the back. So I understand him standing there, and even to a certain extent having his hands up. But it's that arm cocking back that you mentioned, right? And we see it here in number 10. He cocks his arm back to throw a punch. Now, it doesn't look like he actually throws one, whether because white may have gotten with the left hand there or whatever happens, and then he kind of goes, and then they just kind of get rolling here. I think it's difficult for us to say for sure whether he's actually throwing a punch, but look, if someone's just pushed someone and the one who's just been pushed brings his arm back, in a high school level, I think it's apropos.
It's an escalation
to go for a red card in that situation. The other thought is, hey, he's already committed a foul that is a yellow card offense, and now what he's doing afterwards is at least a yellow card offense. And so we could get off with hey, it's at least a double yellow. But really, what I'm interested to talk about is you mentioned, you go in there and you probably shouldn't have. I'd agree that, in high school especially, we're really careful about putting our hands on players. But then at this moment in particular, your hands are out. Hey, I shouldn't be here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is a great opportunity for you to take a couple steps back. At least 2 other players have come in now. There's at least 4 players right here, and we should be out of there, right? We should be at least 3 yards back because now we have everyone joining. Once we get over 3 players, we're stepping back because now all we can do is take numbers. We have to see what's happening and just take numbers. Now, fortunately, in this situation, nothing else really pops off. Nothing happens. But if we're back, then we can see. We have our ARs kind of on one side and the other, but we're still in the middle of it. And so now we really only have our AR's eyes on the mass when we're so hyper-focused. But if we step back, we can also see the mass, and that kind of helps us. The other thing I'd say here, Scott, is, once this happens here, the keeper's involved, all this stuff, here is where, assuming we had stepped back, even if we hadn't, we're just trying to make sure that things don't escalate. What I mean by that, coaches are going to come in. They're trying to separate players. You can see coaches coming on the field. But at this point, we need to go have conversations with our AR once this mass has kind of disassembled. And they kind of do it themselves, right? Like if you play here, they kind of go on. People start moving away from each other. But the red cards just come out too quickly, I think, Scott. I think the red cards come out too quickly because we need to know, hey, is there other reds we need to give? What did you see in talking to our ARs? Also, give it a chance to just settle down for a second. There's a lot of emotion here. If you look, no one's really looking at us as the official, so they don't even see the reds. Really, the only one who sees the reds is really the spectators and then who's on the sides. And so the players might not even know who's getting a red here. And so I think it's a great opportunity. Mass confrontation, take a step back, observe, let them and the coaches get them out of there. Once they're out of there, we make sure that players aren't still near each other. Players are kind of towards their bench. Let's check with our ARs. Do we have anything else we need to address? Do we have a yellow card? Do we have a red card? What did you see? Once we've chatted with both of them, now we have the information and we go and show our cards. Red card to white, certainly, and I would go to him first because he's the instigator. And then for whatever you have for the maroon player in this situation, a red. So then boom, a red card to him, and then we go on.
I think one of the things going on here is obviously I'm a grassroots referee who doesn't advertise myself as an expert, at the higher levels. But at the level that I often referee, I pull yellows super quickly when I know I'm going to give one because it helps de-escalate a situation. I think the piece I'm learning here and, from your advice looking at this is that mass confrontations are different. They're a different animal. So I pull these reds so quickly because I'm trying to de-escalate. But you're right, and you see it very clearly on the video. Nobody's looking at it. And in fact, I even have to hold this red up for several seconds just so they even know he's getting one, right? So, yeah, and I need to do a better job of talking to both ARs.
Yeah, sometimes as officials, we just miss things that have escalated the game, but it doesn't seem to have been the case here. And occasionally there are just times when players, just for whatever reason that we don't know, just act out.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because after this game, the referee crew and I, we were talking. We're like, man, we must have missed something in that game. But fun fact, a couple weeks later, I was reffing a youth tournament and a coach came up to me and said, hey, did you ref the Rockland-Whitney game a couple weeks ago? And I got to talking with him. Turns out he was the coach for the Rockland team in this. And so at first I'm like, oh, what's going on? But I asked him, I said, look, did I miss something in that game? Like what? Just from your perspective, I'm open to what happened. He said, no. You didn't miss anything. You and your crew did well. We played them earlier in the season. Those 2 players were going at it. And my player last game of the season, he decided he wanted to make a statement. And, so, that made me feel a little bit better.
There you have it. I mean, that's exactly right. There you have it. There's the information that we would have in this game, we don't know about. And, fortunate enough that, we actually learned that because we still might be looking at this game like, well, we must have missed something. But I think it's important for us as officials. Oftentimes, there are things that we missed that may have led up to stuff. And maybe that happens more often than not. But sometimes players just have moments of weakness where they just lash out and there's really nothing we could have done to prevent it. and we just have to respond appropriately. We have to get the cards right, and we have to take everything in and just do it. We try to be proactive as officials, but sometimes we just have to be reactive because that's what the situation has asked for, and it seems like that's what happened in this situation.
So now with the confrontation in the rear view, we are now in the final minute of the match. Red is on an attack here, going in kind of one-on-one with the keeper challenge, and then, keeper makes this side. Again, these are very difficult, exceptionally difficult moments in a game. Keeper definitely gets the ball and slides over there, and then as this red player is trying to go over, the keeper's momentum brings him up a little bit. He does have maybe his elbow up a little bit there. Yeah, when this happens, I'm trying to catch up. They flip the field on me. I think, for a long game, I'm doing a decent job of catching up there. Fat man running, right? But, I get down here and I see him turn around and say something to him. I think he was trying to say something like, bring it, right? But he comes in. I'm running all the way down here because I know this could get heated. I do end up giving him the yellow card here because, he turns around and he's kind of just unsporting in how he goes about approaching that player. So I want to make sure I make a show of dealing with that. I give him this yellow card. So and then as they're walking away, they continue to jaw. So I also turn and I give a yellow card to this player because they're just, they're in each other's grill. So I give them both yellow cards, but just for unsporting behavior there. If we flash forward a couple of seconds, they're breaking up. I see Manny, my assistant referee. He just gives me this signal like, let's kill the game. Game's done. We're in the final seconds. So I end up going ahead and blowing it dead, point at the center circle, game's finished, and we're out. After this, the crew and I were talking, and there was some discussion around, should we just have ended the game after the confrontation a couple of minutes ago? Now, I will say that honestly never crossed my mind. I wasn't thinking about there being only a couple of minutes left. I don't know. What are you thinking?
It's easy seeing this now to be like, oh, well, we could have ended the game. I don't see something from that last. I mean, it's really just two players who go into it. A couple of the players from white kind of come in and are like kind of like hands in there, but they're not really going at the player in red. So it's really just two players, one player being the clear instigator and another player kind of responding inappropriately at one point to it. You give both of them a red. There's not extra pushing or shoving that oftentimes will happen with a mass confrontation, particularly at higher and adult levels. You'll see this extra pushing and shoving, and what are you going to do about it? And this jawing, that doesn't seem to really be occurring in that last clip. And so I don't necessarily see a reason to call the game there. The only thing I could think of is, well, it's JV, we could get out of it, but still, if you end the game early, I mean, they still are allotted their full 40-minute halves. Right. So if we end the game early, we're terminating the game, right? Or suspending the game or whatever. So I don't think we could really get away with that. I certainly think at this point, the time seems to have expired. So yeah, let's tweet, get out of it. But to have ended it on the previous one, I probably wouldn't have.
With that, the game was done. So obviously lots happening here right at the very end. It was one of those, a really good, I felt like really good game, both from just a soccer quality perspective, and I even felt good on the field for most of the game. Now, let's check to see how our Sapper score turned out, though. So with 27 decisions and 4 deductions, this gives this game a final Sapper score of 85.2%. So this is right on the bottom edge of a good game. So we'll call it like a good game minus, right? But, on the field, honestly, I felt pretty good about this game. Sometimes, this is a game with fewer decisions than many of the others, so that obviously also, affects the score some. And I don't think any of the missed calls were major in the, in deciding the game.
Not at all.
But it was pretty crazy pretty crazy end to what otherwise was actually a really fun game to both watch and officiate.
Yeah, and I think it's helpful for us as officials to remember, like, hey, the game is 80 minutes, 90 minutes, whatever level you're doing, the game is that long. And so we as officials ought to be switched on, even, okay, it's 2-0, there's 3 minutes left, maybe one team's been dominating or whatever the case is, like, we still need to be switched on for the full 90, 80, 75, whatever, how many minutes the game is, so that we are there for situations. And Scott, I think you did that really well at the end with that mass confrontation. Like right when it happened, you're there, your hand is extended out at first, and then sure, we've talked about maybe we shouldn't have stepped in and tried to separate players physically, but I think you were switched on in that situation, which is really good. Now we're just looking at, okay, can we fine tune what we actually do when that moment occurs, as opposed to, hey, we weren't even ready for that moment.
Well, and I really appreciate, Andrew, that you joined us, and with your skill level and experience in this, a lot of times with what we're reviewing and refing with the Sappers, we're focused on decision making and foul recognition, and it's been some really good insights into handling those kind of off the foul situations, as well as positioning and movements on the field, which is something I need to work on and can learn a lot for. So I really appreciate that you took the time to join us, and I know it's a big time investment, but I've definitely got a lot out of this.
No, it was a lot of fun, and positioning, amongst other things, are something that we all as officials are striving to work on. So it was a lot of fun, and thanks for having me on, Scott.
But that concludes this game, so join us back here for our next upload. And I'm Scott.
I'm Andrew.
And we'll see you out on the pitch.
Scott, I'm interested to see here, or just one thing I'm noticing, right? So right here, right?
I should be running.
Where are we, Scott? I think we just help ourselves if we just get moving quicker.
Now, one thing I wish I had done differently, I shouldn't have done this.
Slide challenge from behind. You just slipped, Scott.
I just slipped.
There. See how his elbow's coming up? There's no reason for his elbow to come back.
So is that a PK?
No.
Why not?
That's a good question. I don't think it's a... Well, for one, I think you'd have a really, really tough day on your hands if you call a penalty kick there.
Right. With that, thanks for... Gotta untie my tongue.
That was funny.
Okay. But that concludes this game review. So but join us back here for our... It's going in the bloopers.
Oh, is there a blooper section?
Yeah.